Hi, I'm Charles and welcome to Strange Booze, the random web series where we try the strangest of alcohols or alcohols found in the strangest of places. Alright, let's drink. So today we're going to be trying an alcohol called Lau Lau. So what Lau Lau is essentially a Laotian rice whiskey. So a whiskey product distilled from rice. Now this isn't something that's very common to North America, but this one showed up here because there's a distillery nearby to where we live, about a 45-minute drive, and the individual that runs the distillery is an ex-army officer who happened to also be a Laotian immigrant. So he brought his family recipe for Lau Lau here, and now he runs a distillery. He also makes some other whiskey products or some blended Lau Lau whiskeys. And Julie and I had the opportunity to visit the distillery, White Tiger Distillery, a few months ago in the late fall. We're going to try this, and then I'm going to try to mix some traditional whiskey cocktails out of it, but also a Laotian cocktail recipe that uses Lau Lau as a base. So all that being said, we're going to open it up. I'm going to give it a try here, and we'll talk about like the flavor notes and everything on the raw spirit. So we'll try a little bit of a sip. So the first thing you want to do is take a very small amount on your palate. And the reason is the 120 proof is quite strong, and you really want to just kind of get the flavors of the alcohol, of the spirit. So put a very faint amount on your lips, kind of on your palate. You let those volatile alcohols kind of evaporate. So there's an instant spirit, that cooling sensation, a hint of menthol, but then these sweet undertones, these like syrup or caramel kind of undertones, maybe even a slight fruitiness to it. Now, when Julia tried it at the distillery, she thought it was just all spirit, and I tried to walk her through the palate evaporating thing, but I can understand why somebody might feel like this. Again, this one's proofed down to 120 proof. The raw distillate we were tasting was somewhere around 168 proof. So apparently this is traditionally drank straight in Laos. I read something about a ritual online where when you're invited in to be a guest in a house, they dump a cup of the stuff on the ground, and then they show some sort of like familial machismo by downing a cup themselves, and then the guest is obligated to kind of do the same thing. I can't imagine that would be particularly enjoyable. I don't think it makes a great shot, but I think those underlying flavors might actually make it an interesting cocktail ingredient, and that's what we're going to move on to next. So the first cocktail we're going to try and build is called a Pygmy Slow L'Orange. This is a traditionally Laotian cocktail made for tourists and that. This cocktail uses Lau Lau, some orange juice, we got some Minute Maid orange juice here, green tea. In this case, we're in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic and we're self-isolated. I didn't have any green tea at home, but I did some herbal tea that I was able to steep earlier. So we're going to use that as an ingredient. Then simple syrup and lime juice. So I have my fresh lime here. We're going to give that a cut and we're going to go. Okay, so we take our shaker, we take our jigger, we're going to use the 1 ounce. Ice. Gotta have ice. Use cracked ice if you prefer. We're just using fresh cubes from the refrigerator ice maker. Alright, so 1 ounce of Lau Lau. It goes right in on the ice. We'll take orange juice, 1 ounce orange juice. I've seen variants of this cocktail made with Laotian vodka, but the traditional way would be with the Lau Lau. Then we would take normally 1 ounce of green tea. In this case, it's an herbal tea. For an authentic cocktail, you probably want to go with that green tea. A nice kind of florally, oolong-y green tea kind of flavor. And then we're going to move on to our sweetener, 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. Toss that in. The last step is going to be a 1/2 ounce of lime juice, which is kind of roughly equivalent to a whole medium lime. This lime's a little bit large. We'll probably just throw all of it in there anyway. And I've got fresh squeezer. Always nice. Oop, that's the lemon squeezing part. There we go. Now, one of the tips I've heard is to avoid over squeezing the lime juice. You begin to expel some of the oils out of the skins. That's going to increase the bitterness in your drink. However, some of us sometimes like that, so I wouldn't say it's a deal breaker to have it, just that it's generally not advised. All right, so we seal up our Boston shakers there, give it a quick shake. start to get that shaker to frost over just a little bit. We tap to relieve that pressure. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take a rocks glass and we're going to put some more ice on there. Drain the ice off the shaker. So basically a gated pour. There's a lot of things that are similar to this to a whiskey sour, which is what we're basically going to make next. All right. So here's a Pygmy's L'Orange. Cheers. It's not half bad. You can definitely taste the Lau Lau in there still. It's definitely not overpowering. I think my tea substitute has changed the flavor profile of this a little bit. I can definitely taste the herbals and I can see how a green tea might actually mellow this out. But generally crisp and refreshing. Very citrusy, not overly sweet. Not bad. So that's our Pygmy's L'Orange. Okay, next we're going to mix up a little bit of Laotian Canadian fusion in the form of a maple Lau Lau sour. So this follows a basic maple whiskey sour recipe, but instead of using Canadian rye whiskey, we're going to use Lau Lau. We're going to see how this profile works together. So again, we're going to take some ice, put that in the shaker. Now our maple sour is going to call for 2 ounces of Lau Lau. So pour those in. 1 ounce of lemon juice in this case. I actually have a fresh lemon. Now we're going to put in a little bit of maple syrup, about 3/4 of an ounce. So in this case I have a Parker's maple syrup. It's a darker grade of maple syrup, but it's fine. You're going to get that sweet base in there. It's taking the place really of that simple syrup. We're going to finish that off with a couple dashes, 2 to 3 dashes of Angostura bitters, which every bar should have. And that's a quick simple dash. 1, 2, 3. Some people like to add it after the cocktail has been shaken once it's in the glass. Now ideally we would have a presentation glass with some cracked ice or a nice big rock. But I'm going to use fridge ice because that's what I got. Okay, we'll give it a shake. So once again, that shake's going to chill your drink and also dilute it down. We're just going to strain this off, this maple Lau Lau sour on the rocks. And you can see the color of that maple syrup coming through. So cheers. The spirits definitely come through in this a lot more. Probably partially because there's 2 ounces of Lau Lau in here instead of 1. However, I think a rye whiskey or a bourbon might still be better because I'm not sure if this is the right pairing for a Lau Lau. But definitely not undrinkable. I'll probably finish this after the video. Alright, now for our third Lau Lau cocktail, we're going to try and make a Lau Lau mint julep. A mint julep is a whiskey-based drink that uses sugar and muddled mint leaves to basically create kind of a crisp, refreshing summer drink. Traditionally served in a julep cup. We don't have that, so we're going to use a lowball. So basically how you're going to construct this, you're going to take somewhere between 6 and 12 pieces of mint leaf. So I just picked this fresh out of the garden, quite large leaves. You can throw in about a 1/2 ounce of simple syrup or a couple of teaspoons of sugar. Then typically you muddle this a bit, and this is just going to help that mint kind of combine with that syrup, also start to release some of those oils. We're going to go through a process of swizzling this shortly with a bar straw. So once that's all muddled in there, take that muddler out. What you're going to do is you're going to put crushed ice on here. So I don't have any pre-crushed ice, but I bought this nifty retro ice crusher at a thrift store. And it's got jaws like for grinding ice in there. Basically puts ice into the reservoir. So I'm going to go ahead and pour some ice in there, and then we'll fast forward through me grinding it. So as you can see, I've made up a little batch of crushed ice in there. If you don't have an ice crusher manual like this, you could use a blender on coarse pulse. You could also use a Lewis bag like I just hit, which is basically just a canvas bag and some sort of wooden mallet or stick or giant muddler. You could also just use a rolling pin and a tea towel to basically crush that ice up. But for a mint julep, it's kind of important to get that ice crushed into there. So now that we have our mint muddled slightly with that simple syrup or the sugar, We're gonna put some crushed ice in here. So basically, the goal is to fill the glass, sort of, and then to put the spirit in. In this case, it's gonna call for 2 ounces roughly of Lau Lau, or your whiskey or your bourbon, whatever you happen to use. There's even a Maryland specific julep recipe out of there, believe it or not. So now that that's in there, what's going to happen is we're going to give this a swish around. And we're going to top it up with more ice. And you can see how if we had a julep glass that this would be pretty impressive. It would be all frosting over on the edges and everything. So once this is done, there's a couple ways to do this. You would traditionally garnish this with a little bit of additional mint. You'd also generally put in a very short straw, and the reason for that is that you want people to be able to smell the aromatics of the mint combining with their ability to taste an otherwise lightly sweetened cocktail. All right, cheers. So of the 3 cocktails we made so far, this is definitely the one that's most spirit forward. There is a slight sweetness from that simple syrup. There's also the mint coming through. Of course, we could add a couple dashes of Angostura bitters, and we'll give that a try. You won't see this in all julep recipes, but you will see it in some. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit better with the bitters. Okay, so what did we learn? I think we learned that Lau Lau is a really unusual spirit. While it's notionally a whiskey, it being a rice-based whiskey, it combines differently in drinks. I would say of the 3 that we made tonight, the Pygmy Slow L'Orange, which is closest to an actual Laotian cocktail recipe, incorporated the taste of the Lau Lau most accurately. The Maple Lau Lau Sour was an interesting cocktail, but probably needs to be tweaked a little bit. And I'm not entirely convinced Lau Lau is an acceptable substitute for rye whiskey or bourbon in a mint julep. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Let us know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for drinking with us. Cheers.